algo fundamental a la hora de un videojuego es saber cómo promocionarlo. Y creo que de eso nos van a hablar en la próxima ponencia. ¿O me equivoco, Rubén?
Así es, Laura. Debemos tener claro cómo manejar el marketing de nuestro videojuego desde el comienzo de su desarrollo. Y de eso mismo nos ha venido a hablar Volodymyr Manoilo, que es Product Marketing Manager de GameLoft Barcelona, y ahora nos viene con su ponencia Role of Marketing in the Early Stage of Game Development. Esta es en inglés. Un aplauso, chicos.
Hey team, thanks all for hosting me today. As was teased, I will give a short talk on the role of marketing in the early stages of game development. I will try to keep these as practical as possible. I can imagine that a lot of you are planning to work for the gaming studios or launch your own gaming studios. And usually marketing is not something that you keep in mind on that early stages. But I will try to give you some frameworks that could really enrich both your development and your cooperation within the other departments and make it the way that you will be able to implement some of the aspects in your future careers. So today I will start from a short background presentation. We'll cover a bit of theory so you know how to talk with marketing people in their language. And then we will switch to the specific elements that you will be able to implement in your pitches for publishers or investors if you would like to develop something, or to your future careers and job, let's say, interviews in the bigger studios. So in terms of background, I'm a classical marketeer. I've started working in the agencies first. I've worked for a bunch of clients, starting from home electronics like LG, through some pharmaceutical companies as GlaxoSmithKline, insurances, and automotive. But then I've decided to lead the new business department in the media house I've been working for at that moment, and concentrated my efforts on gaming. This is also a short insight into if you want to go into gaming, it's always possible to switch even from another career. And I've been working for quite a period of time on the agency behalf for Wargaming and Bethesda, and then switched to the client side, started working for Wargaming on the game called World of Tanks, and finally arrived where I am today in Barcelona, working for GameLoft Barcelona on the game called Asphalt. And when we are usually speaking about some new project or new product, we keep in mind always the audience and the value proposition, the product. This is the classical Canvas model. I'm sure you are familiar with this one. When we're speaking about marketing precisely, it is the part that covers more the mastering and clustering the knowledge about the customer, about the player. So today we will talk more about how to structure your knowledge about the playing audiences, how to build your communication about the game, how to understand your audience better, and how to be able to communicate what audience are you going for with your title, whether it's the new one or already developed, to the people around you, not only in marketing, but also in live ops, art, and prod teams that all need to understand what is the audience that we are going for and how to picture them. And as I've promised, a bit of theory here. So in the world of marketing, there are kind of two big measure theories, I would say, in terms of how to approach the growth and how to approach the brand growing. On one side, a very nice book that I'm highly recommending, which is called How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp. That, long story short, tells that there is no such thing as loyalty and targeting, that majority of your revenues will be doing casual and light users. So even if you have some specific, let's say, title that originally targets sports fans, it still makes sense to go just for wide reach. Try to reach as many people as possible, because some of them eventually will join your product and will generate revenue and traction for you. And this is the main objectives that you should put into your marketing and media activation. Just grow the reach, put the messaging in front of as many eyes as possible. And on another side, another quite famous modern marketer, Mark Ritson, his position is that hyper targeting and the segmentation isn't something that we're done with yet. And specifically for the titles that I would say you have a gut feeling that they're going for a more niche audience, whether it's hardcore titles or just indies that are fitting the specific, let's say, niche or idea, these, let's say, belief would better connect with. And with this said, of course, there is no clear answer, and everything depends on the type of the product that you have in your portfolio. For instance, if you're working on the brands like March of Empires, a strategic game, definitely you want to go for deeper targeting. If you're working on the game like Dragon Mania Legends, which is a casual title, it makes sense to work on the broader audience and try to maximize that reach. But how you can summarize that is that sophisticated wide marketing is not about targeting everyone with the same message and treating everyone the same. It's more about understanding different clusters and understanding how to prioritize the audience that you have the possibility to reach out to. And to actually put the phrase of understanding of the audience into some implementable terms, I would like to introduce two key elements, which is the identity and the experience. And you can treat those as an answer to the question who and how. So if we're speaking about the identity, it's everything that you can find out to describe your potential consumer, starting from his gender, age, interest, buying personas, etc., etc. And when we're speaking about experiences, it's all about the moments, the triggers and moments that are building up this consumer experience. Just to give you an example, so if we're speaking once again about the game like Fortnite. So for instance, you have the audience factors like a classical age, gender, income. And as an example, once again, on the example of Fortnite, we know that it's a predominantly male-dominated game, I would say 60-40. Young adults, so like 16 to 25 is the core audience of the game. Income, it is a free-to-play game, so it's quite broad. And personality type, we know that people are playing competitive shooters are dominators. And this way you can start structuring the information about the players that you want to target. For instance, if we're speaking about the related passions of interest, you can start naming the specific competitive information here. So they're playing these and these and these titles, or they are fans of this specific sport, music genre, cinema, comics, books, whatever. Everything that you feel is relevant to explaining the audience to and understanding the audience should go here. And when you're approaching the new product, it's really important to come up with a lot of things that are describing your persona, because end of the day, a lot of them will be killed in the process of development. So when you're cooperating with your product teams, or if you are in the product team, it's really nice to build these rich personas and enrich the number of parameters that you're using, so you can better understand how you're going to use specific elements of this identity in your product, and whether you need to keep this element of identity if you have something related in the product that can be connected with this identity, or this is, let's say, a redundant aspect, but you're just keeping that for making a more comprehensive look. So to summarize, I recommend you to start broad and then go into cutting mode, trying to actually sharpen the definition of your audience. So continuing the buying behaviors, it's how important the brand for the person in gaming market is a specifically interesting case because there is a specific customer segment that goes for indies and which isn't interested as much in AAA titles, which goes for specific gaming mechanics rather than the brand name, the franchise with the 5, 6, 7 games in the franchise. So this is an element that is also key in our, I would say, industry. And brand and product needs. Here for gaming, it's really important to keep in mind the emotional needs. There are 6 emotional segments that you can distinctively qualify audience for. It's dominators, people who are looking for competition. It's social makers, people who are looking for connection and social elements of the game. And a bunch of others. I won't be concentrating too much on that. This is information that you would be able to find afterwards if you would like to. But just to keep in mind that this element is one of the key elements out of these 4 that I really recommend you to concentrate on, because usually people are starting from the top. They're over concentrating on the type of the persona that they're building up in terms of age and gender, and they're overlooking the important emotional need factors that may be crucial in understanding what gameplay mechanic you want to ask the prod to develop, or which element of the game you would like to position to the audience. And now in terms of the experience, it's more about understanding what type of the game you're building in terms of when it will be played. Is it the hyper casual game that you're opening when you're in the bus? Is it just a time killer that you're opening every time you're bored? Is it a mid-core game that is an entertainment experience for your evening? Is it the party game that should come up once you have a couple of beers and a meeting with friends? Just to, once again, understand how you can create specific experiences around these opportunities in everyday lives of your players and consumers. With this said, the process of implementing, we've just described the process of how you're identifying the audience and how you're building up this comprehensive description of the audience in the early stage of the game development. But of course, when you're just starting, you don't have only one audience and you're able to tell, yeah, we're targeting just those people. We just need males 18-25 that are competitive players that are interested in football and in heavy metal music. No, you will have a bunch of other ideas. You will have a bunch of possible mixes and possible extensions of the audience. And it's all about how you're building the plan for testing for those audiences together with the product development. So marketing in this case is actually something that you need to have a plan for simultaneously with the product development. So when you're making the first play tests, you're able to test your ideas about the audience as well. So when you will start collecting the audiences for your first alpha, you will try to enrich the audience with the players that are sharing specific common identities and experiences, and collect the data about their satisfaction with the game, satisfaction with the product, satisfaction with the brand, so you can validate whether this is the audience that you want to go for. So basically, what you're doing is that you have a team of 3 to 5 people. You have your game designer, you have your art person, you have your programmers, and let's say you're planning to have a marketing person or you're trying to recruit a marketing person. What's the expectation that you can have to his or her contribution in this early process? You can really expect the person to be able to show you a set of hypotheses about the audience, much deeper than what is usually made by the game designer, and hypothesis in terms of how this audience can react with the product and specific USPs that are planned by game designer slash product manager. Then when you will come to the moment when you're speaking to the players and when you have something to show to them, this is the moment of test. And here, once again, the marketing person is needed to be able to use the already available data or the data that you will be capturing to validate the specific audience's ideas. So you're starting from 6 distinctive segments that you want to test with your game. And after the validation, you're left with only 2. Let's say you've had your segment of 18 to 25, but in reality, you're discovering that 18 to 21 is one segment that is more concentrated around, let's say, party gaming and party usage of your game, and another 21 to 25 is more concentrated on domination and solo playing, or on collections, so on achievement, on collecting everything that is available in your game. And after you're getting this understanding of the fact that the segments are changing, or you're refining your segment ideas, this is the moment also to circle the information to the development and tell them that you have the positive responses, the positive validation about the certain segments, so they can use these to build more user stories, to build more features. For instance, to add some collections feature. For instance, to make some communication tool in the game, so you can actually capitalize on specific segment that you're finding promising. And now in terms of how these hypotheses can be made depending on the type of the game and stage where you're at. First, think about the existing information that you already can have. This is the first couple of points that are more related to already existing and big studios. For instance, if you've started working in EA and you have these new products that they just kicked off the development for, and you have 2-3 years for, let's say 6 months until the MVP, 2-3 years until the full release, you can try to look into historical activations that had been done for other brands. You can try to have the first conversations with the players of reference titles that you have in portfolio. You can try to organize the quality of interviews. You can look into the segmentation and brand tracking that usually is provided by your competitive intelligence team. And you also can use their own platform analytics. So if it's the next game in the franchise, for instance, Asphalt 9 is the 9th game in the series. So we have a lot of feedback from our previous games players. We understand what are the specific features that they were missing in the games, which of the features they were missing between the different iterations of the games, and how we can use it in future development. And then try to ask the question, can the products or features or brand personality help me to define the audience? Once again, switching to more indie-oriented gaming developers, you have something that is around history, narrative, content-heavy production. Definitely will be looking on someone who will be more nerdy, more ready to invest his time into reading, more ready to deep dive into the specific theme of your game. And these can give you an insight on how to structure that information. What interests and passions can help to define our buying persona? Once again, if it's World of Tanks, it's a history lovers. It's a majority of the golden core audience that's had been with the game since the release. And this helps you to reinforce the specific features development and overall the game concept in the further stages of development. And of course, don't forget to do the background research. So something for which you can use the available tools on the market. Something that is available for everyone is Google Trends. beautiful tool. I'm sure you've been using that. I'm highly recommending to use it to validate your hypothesis. Try to pick up one reference point, try to understand the volume of interest to the idea that you're trying to build up. Try to benchmark that with alternatives. Really helps you to prioritize your hypothesis and to validate, even on this early stage, the first ideas that you have. Then JWI is the tool that is called Global Web Index. So if you will be working for a bigger studio, they should have an access to this tool, or they will be working with an agency that has an access to this tool. So if you won't be working in marketing, you will be working with marketing departments that should have an access to this. This is a huge database of the information about specific segments. Long story short, they've developed a 140-page questionnaire that they're putting roughly 1,000 to 5,000 people in different markets through the questionnaire, trying to pick up the specific age brackets, specific gender requirements, so you can have the global overview of interests, passions, of almost all types of the audiences within the given country. So you can check for US people interested in games, and you can check their indexes on their interest in music genres. For instance, this is how we discovered that the racing players are much more into heavy metal and electronic music than, for instance, pop, or than into the Latino music. This is also something that can help you to validate the ideas for specific features, or once again, build that audience and understanding whether the parameter that you're picking up is important for your segment building. And then Sensor Tower, the tool for competitive games analysis. You're able to check the app's performance in this tool. Usually is available for bigger studios. With a free trial, you have some limited possibilities to research the competitive titles, but just for you to have some actionable tool sets if you will be working on your project by your own, you can try the free version. That should be also sufficient enough. And then definitely talk to real players. I think you're in the perfect place for that. University and degree oriented in gaming, you should have a lot of players around you. Try not to be biased. Try to diversify your contacts and communications. And this way you will be able to capture a lot of insights and possibilities for segmentation. Try to read existing researches. For instance, Newzoo, something that I'm highly recommending. They're posting the information about the gaming market quite oftenly. So you may have an opportunity to check out that and get some insights out of there as well. And then social media content, once again, for bigger studios, is a tool called Stockwalker that helps you to analyze the sentiment. And the tool called Creator IQ helps you to analyze specific creators. So if you know that you have a gaming influencer that has some nice potential to be in the audience, and you want to validate certain parameters of his, let's say, demographics, people who are following him, his followers base, this is also the tool to look into that. Second, put that into test. So try to put on the list all your hypotheses in terms of the audience and combinations of specific segments. Try to confront it with the data that you're capturing from the tool that I've mentioned before, and try to map different identities and experiences data sets together so you can create the coherent overview of consumer profiles, and you can confront it, but also check it with the product team to understand whether they feel that the value proposition that the game is developing is responding to the hypothesis of the audience that you've built up on your side. This is a more structural approach to something that quite oftenly made natively or just with the gut feeling in the smaller studios. Then try to validate the hypothesis and segments if you feel that the segment is different enough from the others. So if you have males in 18-21 and then you have 22-25, do you feel that they behave differently enough? Do you feel that their interests are different enough to keep them in the separate segments? Do you feel that they represent the monetary value? Do you feel that the segment that you build it up is the segment that you want to prioritize because of the high potential consumer power? Once again, I will circle back to the information I've shared about the emotional needs targeting. So out of top 10 most played games currently in the world, I think 6 or 8 are shooters. It's because they are targeting extremely lucrative audience, extremely engaged audience of dominators, people who would like to be competitive, people who would like to spend money to be able to dominate others. And this is one of the reasons, one of the ways how to identify how you want to make your game a commercial success. Try to target the audience that initially has a significant purchasing power. Then can it be constructed and targeted efficiently? So up until this moment, we haven't been speaking a lot about the channels. This is basically the moment when you're starting to think, okay, I know what players we're going for. I know that the product will have the value proposition for the audience that I'm more or less identified. Will I be able to find them in the internet? Because if your launching strategy is we'll just put that on the market, we'll just make the Steam and Epic release, I have some bad news for you. Every year, 12,000 games are released, and only a small percentage, I think it's around 15%, are getting more than 300 players and 300 playing sessions. So the probability that something will be organically discovered is quite low. So I highly recommend you to check out the tools like Meta Business Cabinet, so like basically Facebook and Instagram targeting, Google Ads targeting, to understand whether you will have channels to reach out to the audience that you build it up. For instance, one more example, you want to target the dominators. You've picked up, Vova said that dominators is a nice emotional targeting. We want to go for dominators only. Try to find them now in the Google Ads targeting. Unfortunately, you won't be able to, so you would need to have additional parameters that are describing the audience that also may have this emotional segmentation parameter. So we're circling back to one of the first slides, try to enrich those segments as much as possible, and then cut it down to smaller number of parameters, because it's always easier to cut down rather than trying to add the new parameters for the audience if you've started for something very niche or undefinable. And then last but not least, can it be effectively and cost efficiently converted? So once again, think about the platform, think about the distribution system. Is it the mobile game? Is it the PC game? Which stores will you be using? How you're envisioning this journey for the player to arrive to your product, and whether it will be possible for the player to join the game easily. One example here is you see that the Silver Age people, so like 50 plus, are have a growing role in economy. They're entering a lot of industries. They are rapidly digitalizing themselves, and you can tell, let's make a game for Grandpass, World of Tanks 2.0. But then, are you able to convert those people effectively through the existing stores? Most probably not. They will face the extremely high barriers of entrance, extremely high barriers of acceptance by community. So you will need to find some effective ways how you can convert the audience. One of the real world examples here, and one of the successful examples why the mobile gaming became so extremely popular up until the last couple of years when it's stagnating, it's because it's made it possible to convert much more efficiently the audience that previously wasn't even targeted. It's casual players, it's a female audience that hasn't been joining as much on the same scale PC and console gaming because of the community, let's say, toxicity, let's be honest. Now with the new types of the platforms, we have this opportunity to convert effectively and efficiently much bigger audience sets. So this is something also to keep in mind if you're planning to do the game for Grand Pass, or you have this idea from your product team. You know that it's better to recommend them rather mobile platforms than consoles and NPCs. And now, how to refine the idea. So you've ended up with two segments you want to go for, 18, 21, 22, 23, predominantly male, interested in heavy metal, competitive shooters, blah, blah, blah. Try to understand whether you want to split those segments even more, or you want to combine those profiles to create a larger and valuable audience. Try to prioritize the audiences if you're not able to combine them. So if we would need to pick up, are we going for 21, 23, or we are going to 24, 25, which one we are picking up and why? And try to expand an audience, adding additional data parameters. I know that I was telling you to cut that down as much as possible longer, like down the line. But if you feel that you've removed some parameter that significantly shrinked your audience, you can get this parameter back if you feel that the audience won't lose its commercial value because of this additional potential buyers entering the segment. And last but not least, try to build up personas. This is not something that I've included into that presentation. It's one of very effective and quite basic marketing tools. You can Google and check it out by yourself. It's not something, it's not a rocket science. It's basically the representation of the segment. So instead of going for, oh, it's some male of 18 years old, you're actually naming this person, you're adding some specific behaviors, and you see if the person of the segment that you built it up can actually exist. So for instance, can it be the electronic music raver 65 plus? Can be, but then you will notice these inconsistencies in the segments that you build it up. And once again, you will be able to effectively communicate that to other departments and other teams if you feel that some of the ideas are not matching the audiences that you have a broader knowledge about. And last, build up this audience. Try to look for the tools that you have in hand. It's data management platforms if you have the previous games lives, if you're working in a big company. It's CRM audiences if you've made the pilot test, if you've made an open alpha, if you have the questionnaire you've been using to collect the information about your potential players. This is also the target customer audience that you can utilize to further match it with similar audiences in search and social. Try to use the existing tools and channels like Google Ads, Facebook ads, etc., to understand how to reach out to the audience. So once you're done with initial testing, you can use these to create the proper marketing plan. Initially, you're starting from the moment one when you're just describing it and discussing the ideas with the game team about the gaming mechanisms that you may be using in the game. And up until the point 5, this is more or less this 6 months of validating the MVP and polishing everything up until you're ready to acquire the audience and have the proper testing with the product live. So from point 1 to point 5, it should take you more or less 6 months, or the person that you will recruit to do this job. So once again, to help you to not only understand the concepts and be ready to implement it themselves, but also if you will be having some support from the side to manage your expectations. This is how much time, more or less, it should take. If it takes you 1.5 years, most probably the marketing person you're working with are not working only for your project. I suggest you to look for another one. Or if it's done in 1 month, you can count on having, let's say, more enrichment, because usually this process takes from 5 to 6 months. And in the last 15 minutes, I also would like to secure some time for Q&A. I would like to cover the empathy mapping concept, which is a bit more complex. Empathy mapping is an extended version of persona that I've mentioned. So it's the whole map that ensures that we have a clear agenda and understanding of the audience that we are going for, and that we are able to communicate it to other people in the team, so we can influence the product related decisions and provide a clear direction of insights for the whole team to work with. So you can try to build up from a marketing team such a lighthouse to the other teams and deliver them insights about the audience. And this is the framework how to deliver those insights. I hope that I won't be scaring you now, but yeah, this is more or less how the map looks like. And the good part about that is that you can do this in the form of workshop with your team. Doesn't matter if you have 5-person team that works for the indie project, or you're in the big company. This is something that can be a very interactive workshop. So you're starting from the center and you're putting the information about the segments that you've prioritized and that you've built it up in the previous stages. You're enriching that with pays and gains, which is once again the part of the classical value proposition model. And then you're starting to go, let's say, both sides, to the left and to the right. What this person feels and thinks, what can be going out in terms of the product, the category, the interest. Here you can use also the information that you're taking from your community managers. What are the quotes that we can take from our Discord server, what people were saying about the product, what people were saying about competitive games, what people were thinking, what we assume they were thinking, and then what the person that is in the center can hear about the reflected genre. Very good example here is certain biases that people have about specific genres or mobile platforms. We as Asphalt, despite of being on all the platforms, for years now are fighting with the perception of a mobile game. So what the person that is never played racing game says about, let's say, racing market. Oh yeah, it's interesting. I've heard about Need for Speed. What it hears about our game specifically, that, oh, this is the mobile game. It's not something for serious racing. And this also gives us an insight on how we want to approach these behaviors and these sentiment in the audience. If we want to stick, let's say, to the mobile developments, and we don't want to take into account the fact that it cuts off certain part of the audience, or we want to go more into the fighting with this. So like, what features can we deliver to mitigate that buzz? What we can deliver to change the environment of a new potential segment that enters the game, or the new segment for the new game completely. What the person does, what the behaviors and intents, and the output. So the main learnings, why this is distinctive, how we want to connect that with the product, how we want to put that into communication. With these, when it's discussed together, you're able to actually connect all the teams around one specific customer, I would say, segment, and also to ensure that every person in the team has customer in mind while developing the game, while working on the game, while thinking about additional features. Especially when we're speaking about bigger companies, it's extremely important because people start forgetting that it's not the revenue targets that are in the center, it's not the product that is in the center, it's not the development team that is in the center, it's always a customer, and only the customer centricity brings the positive output and sentiment from the playing audience, especially in the creative industries as gaming is. So once you have that, you're also able to identify so-called gaps and opportunities. And I would suggest you to look at those gaps and opportunities from the perception of the funnel, how the customers are getting familiar with your product. So awareness is that the fact that they are aware that the product exists. Are there the misconceptions about the specific brands that we are currently operating? Are there misconceptions? Once again, an example of Asphalt being a mobile game, despite of the fact that for more than 4 years we're on more than just mobile. Are there misconceptions about the category? Oh, these games are for boys. Oh, these games are for girls. Oh, these games are boring, outdated, whatever. And once again, opportunities. Some problems, some biases that you may have at the same moment are an amazing opportunities for the brand positioning and communication. Consideration. So the specific triggers that are incentivizing the buying intention, the download it now intention. What can be the stoppers here? What can be down the line the objectives? This is also the moment when you're discussing the pricing strategy. And here is also the moment when you're thinking about the potential blockers in terms of the behaviors and features in the game. And then the conversions. Here we're thinking about distribution, shops, app stores, Steam, Epic, you name it. What are the barriers? What are the opportunities that we can leverage out of the stores? Once again, store featurings, amazing opportunity. You need to evaluate your distribution strategy from this perspective as well. And then last but not least, advocacy. So it's about proving that the expectations are met and giving an opportunity to share the experience, socialize, and encourage loyalty for the audience. So something you can tell that it's something that is more on the product side because its retention is there, kind of KPI. I would say that it's also important for the marketing to keep that in mind also during the development to ensure that the expectations versus the deliverables are in line and that there are no misconceptions in the player's perception. So as an example, here is once again something that you can take out as a framework. I suggest you to build up the map like this for your audience ideas. So to have the audience short name, to have a communication task, approximate size, this is something you can take from Facebook, channels that you want to use, insight that you want to approach this audience with, the activation idea / messaging, and then the touch points that you want to have to be able to get to the person, and the KPI to specific segment. Here is also an important parameter. There can be more than one KPI to a specific segment, and you may want to retain more than one segment because they have different KPIs. And let's take a look on the example of a unnamed sport game. So we can target specific sport fans. This is usually the biggest audience. What we need to show to them, what is the communication task, is this game is new, it's relevant, it has interest mechanics, what channels we can use, UA, Facebook, Google Ads, social media, you can start the channels, you can start communication. Regarding the specific sports, if they have the offline placements, you can consider out-of-home communication. The insight, you're building this up based on the specific game mechanics and USPs that you have, but basically you can define it as if the person is interested in this means for us this, so we can make this, the activation idea. And then the activation idea is regarding how we will be acquiring this audience once the product is out, how we want to ensure that the audience will be engaged, how we want to capture them, and what is the specific goal that we are building up here. Touch points are very aligned with channels, but more like a key points rather than overall perception. And the KPIs. It can be reach, it can be unaided brand awareness in the target audience, it can be consideration of the game, it can be straightaway downloads, daily active users, revenue from specific in-game products, it can be installs or engagements. And here, once again, you can have the emotional targeting. Keep in mind that it can have different naming, but it's just the way how you're describing the segment. And also, don't forget to put the competitive titles players here as well. It doesn't matter whether you're doing this in the big company where you have most probably bigger, more complex to produce games, or in the indie market, you always have some competitors that you want to benchmark with because those competitors are validating your gaming ideas and they also are carrying a specific audience that may be easier for you to obtain rather than go for a completely uncovered segment. And with this said, I think we can switch to Q&A. Do you have any specific questions? I can imagine that it's been a lot, but I hope that you may have some questions.
¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta? Vale, voy a poner de mano.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So my question is would be
I've stopped hearing you. Repeat, please. Your question would be?
So my question would be on the size of small games. What would be like some tips or tricks to go about in the retention when you end the what would be the development or a small kind of game, because you usually send it out and don't do more with it. Thank you.
Definitely. Very good question. So two aspects here. First, when you have a small game, you have a small team, it's usually not the type of person that you're getting on board. I mean, the marketing guy. So some So if you have some dispute about whether you want to use this game mechanic or whether you want to go for this style for the game, will it be futuristic or ancient? Will it be connected with Eastern or Western theme? To make these arguments more informative and being able to retain these customer perception in mind, you can use those frameworks. This is one aspect. Then a second aspect, the specific, let's say, market insights for smaller games, what to look at when you have a lot of pressure on just delivering the product. So how to keep in mind, okay, let's secure 10% of time to actually ensure that once the product is out, it gets some traction. I recommend you to look at two key aspects. First is distribution. So what platforms are you going for, what stores they're available, what assets you would need, what featuring opportunities you may have there, because it is more or less free traffic that you're getting for your game. So after the closed tests, if you're going out on those platforms with self-publishing, you have quite extensive opportunities to put your game in front of the eyes of the players. And then it starts to be the question of communication. So you can once again use the frameworks that I've shared. Second one, which is very actionable, is influencers. I recommend you to think through this opportunity, mostly because of the low barriers of entry. Currently, you can book an influencer for a couple of $100 up to $1,000. I mean, not up to, sky's the limit there. But you can start very cheap. And you can generate traction, you can start generating money, which will be enough for you to find the external support for additional, let's say, money leverage to be invested into the user acquisition, or just for first returns so you can start spinning that wheel. To summarize, ASO and influencers and the frameworks that they have showed in the smaller teams, if you don't have a dedicated person for marketing, just to ensure that you have the player in the center of your agenda. Hope this helps.
¿Hay alguna otra pregunta? There's no more questions, so thank you to come here. That's all.
Sí. Muchas gracias, amigos. Hasta luego.